Good evening, it's Tim with you out in Texas, and this is what it looked like outside about 30 minutes ago. A little thunderstorm off to the south there towards the Houston area. You can see kind of a very soft appearance to that anvil, so it's pretty much on the weak side, but you can see a couple planets out there actually tonight if you look to the south. Venus is right here out to the west, just to the right of the moon, so you can see that pretty clearly. And we've got Saturn off to the left of that, kind of to the right of the moon, kind of in between there. And we've also got Mars out there, believe it or not. Mars is to the south, kind of to the left of the moon there. So 3 good planets there. You should be able to see those with binoculars, especially Saturn. Conditions across Texas, here's what it looks like. We've got that southerly flow bringing up moisture, and if we look at the dew points, if we outline the area of 70-degree isotherms, we're going to come up with a map kind of like this. And then if we do the 65 line, it's going to go roughly like that, all the way up to those storms up to the north. Further up north, we do have a front moving in through northwest Oklahoma into the Texas Panhandle, and this is the leading edge right here. And where that front intersects the moisture, that's where we're looking for a possibility of thunderstorms tonight into tomorrow morning. So the DFW area into Waco is going to be under the gun for some, we're not going to say strong thunderstorms, but probably a little bit of rain here. Now we need to start off with the big picture, of course, and we'll do that by going to digital atmosphere. And this is the wind flow across the U.S. right now. So we're focusing on a frontal system in the central U.S. right through here. We've got one major low in Texas, little bear clinic low, and this inverted trough coming up through Minnesota. So we're feeding kind of this recycled tropical air into Texas and Arkansas. And north of that, we've got this cooler air coming in from Canada. Not much of a push, really. We'll check that out and just take you very quickly up to Kansas. Got some gusty, localized 30-knot winds right in here through Russell and up to southern Nebraska, but further up north, not much going on up here. Just kind of light and weak winds, temperatures in the 40s. So the big question is, what's going on out in the Gulf or out in the Atlantic? Head over to NHC's page and you can see Matthew right there off the coast of Florida, Category 4 storm, maximum sustained winds 115 miles an hour. And Nicole is about 800 or 900 miles off to the west or to the east. And that's getting within that range where we start talking about the where you get storms interacting with one another, kind of orbiting each other like planets. So that's what we call the Fujiwara effect. So we're going to see probably a little bit of rightward recurvature on the storm later on, and maybe Nicole doing some sort of weird movement like that too. Infrared satellite picture right along the coast. Let me run that for you. Not a very extensive area of spiral bands and clouds, but we can see a definite eye wall right there passing right over the Freeport area. And it's actually coming in within range of the radar, so let's pull that up very quickly. There you go, there's the Miami radar. And we're showing kind of a double eye wall structure. We've got one outer eye wall like this. That's about a radius of about 30 miles from the center. Then we have this inner eye wall. And in the past hour, the inner eye wall has become almost completely enclosed by this dry area. This is what we call a moat. We have subsidence in there, air that's sinking. And when that tends to surround the inner eye wall like that, we start seeing that start to dissipate. So we're probably going to go through a cycle here in the next several hours where this becomes dominant. On the other hand, we don't have that completely enclosed around the center. So there is a little bit of dry air and train in this hurricane, and much of that is coming from the inland areas of Florida. So that's pretty typical when they come close to the coast. Earlier, the storm did pass over Freeport, the inner eye wall. Freeport is in this area right here. Let me run that back, and you can see about 2 hours ago that inner eye wall passing through there, and that is on the bad side of the hurricane there. So you have the forward speed combined with the rotational velocity on that storm. And just how much velocity, we can go over to the velocity channel on the radar, and this can help us pick out trends and what's going on here as far as intensity. We have to keep in mind the eye is right here, and the maximum winds are going to be running kind of like this. Now we can't, there's no way we can sample motion that's going perpendicular to the radar, so anything like this, we're not going to be able to detect that. It sounded like a Porky Pig there for a second. And same thing on the back side. And that's also true when you get closer to the eye, kind of like that and like that. So there's this area that extends like this that we cannot detect velocities on. And you can actually see it right there. See this white line? That's what we call the zero line. And the shape of that zero line can tell you something about the circulation. But the velocities we can directly measure, those are located right here. And we can just look at the highest velocities being sampled, and I can put the cursor here and read off the bottom. This is about 95 knots inbound, going like that. So using that, we can kind of conclude that if we have a closed circulation, it's probably about 95 knots all the way around, roughly. And we can check the other side here. Now, we're not getting very much backscattering because of all the dry air, but there are going to be some stronger winds in here. We just kind of have to pick our way through the pixels here. Got 97 knots outbound, so going like that. But if we run a few frames back, we might see a more coherent structure here. There we go. That one shot right there, I was picking up some 99 knot winds outbound. So the core of the strongest winds is probably here. Actually, I've gone off the edge here, so let me recenter that. So these are going to be the areas of strongest winds right in here. And one other thing we can do is we can go up to higher tilts. So we can go up to 0.9 and 1.3, and we can sample higher in the storm. And sometimes that'll pick up more scatterers. Now you've probably noticed I'm using the storm relative velocity. A lot of times I like to look at the ground relative velocity on hurricanes, but I've got this set to 0. So if I go to the storm motion vector here, that's at 0. That kind of makes the whole process of analyzing this big mesoscale structure a little bit more simple. I tend to use the storm scale velocity for looking at individual cells. Okay, let's see, anything else going on? Let me go back. Yeah, you can check out the hurricane here at higher tilts. This is 1.3 degrees up at about, let's see, this is going to be 23,000 feet there. So there's the higher levels. And you can see where you've got these higher cumulonimbus clouds on the north side. And those top out at about, let's see here, 44,000 feet. Maybe one little pixel coming up to about 55. So the inner eye wall right now still is the dominant part of the hurricane structure. Then as far as our forecast, what's going to be going on? The first thing we can do is look at intensity. These are the deterministic models here, the ones that sample the vortex specifically. And you can see overall there's a downward trend in these velocities. The more optimistic models as far as stronger storms, that's the HWRF and the COAMPS model. Now the HWRF has had a little bit more error over the past few days. And the reason for that, if we look at the tracks, this is a pretty well a mess here. Let me shut off the drop zone stuff. Okay, let's see, where did it go? There it is. Okay, that should be a little bit more legible. The HWRF has had a little bit more error. And let's see. Let me see if I can find the track. It's kind kind of a mess here, but I've got that written down. Let me find my piece of paper here, and we'll go through the different tracks that we're looking at. Let's see. Yeah, it's a mess here. I've got stuff. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so we're looking at tracks here from different models. So what do we got here? Let's go up to the coast. The ones that are inland, those are going to be the no gaps model from the Navy, which is this one right here. That goes pretty well inland. Also the GFDL model that goes inland, and the UK Met. Now the ones that are kind of closer to the NHC's forecast, kind of in the middle, these are going to be the Japanese model, the GFS, which has been excellent, and the Canadian model. And then the outliers on the other side are the COAMPS model and the HWRF. Those are way out here. So we're getting higher intensities from the HWRF because simply the storm is out over more water and undergoing less friction, so that's going to bump the intensities up a bit. So more than likely what we're going to see is a trend more like this in the median of all these. And that should take it down into the Category 1 range by tomorrow night. So when you join me tomorrow, we're going to be looking at probably a Category 1 to Category 2 storm. That's going to be probably up here near Jacksonville. Let's check that out real quick. Yeah, it's going to be up here tomorrow, and then it should be diminishing into the tropical storm category as it starts ingesting dry air from inland, and we get frictional effects, and then by Saturday it's going to be off the coast of Charleston. And then we start getting that Fujiwara effect, kind of circling the storm. Earlier we were looking at the storm taking a track more up to the Maritimes, but not for the past couple days. We've seen that shift the track back towards Florida, but fortunately the storm should be on the weak side. Now, one thing I like to do is look at the model forecast for 2 years ago, or not 2 years, that would be a dang good model, 2 days ago, and kind of see who's on track. So at the time, the storm was just east of Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Now, the track that looked the most accurate in this area, that would probably be this cyan track. And what do you know? That's the GFS model. So the GFS has had this thing almost nailed. It's done very well. And let's see, the other tracks in the middle that got it close, that would be the UK Met model and this particular run of the HWRF. The ones that went to the right, those were the no gaps model from the Navy. It's been kind of flip-flopping between left and right. And the GFDL has also been kind of an outlier, and that's kind of a shame because the GFDL is a very good model. It's got very good ocean-to-air interactions. And let's see here. I think that's about it for that. So let's go to the forecast. Let's just look at Texas here very quickly. For Texas, we're going to see that front coming on down to the south through the Dallas area. That should be in this area by about 7 or 8 Z, so that's going to be about 2 in the morning. Probably going to see a bit of a line of showers as it hits that better moisture along I-35, and then that should clear North Texas and go into the Austin and Houston area by tomorrow morning. Then that brings us to the synoptic scale forecast. So right now we're looking at the surface front going from Kansas out to the Phoenix area. We're drawing this to the south of that thickness gradient that you see right here. And there's Matthew working up the coast. And then by Saturday, we've got that front moving eastward pretty quickly through the Midwest, running like that. And now the front is starting to link up with the hurricane. So we're starting to ingest some cooler air, and especially drier air. You see those lower humidity values working in. So that's going to be detrimental to the hurricane, most definitely. Then we go out to 72, and then 96 hours. We see Matthew starting to recurve back to the southwest. There's the leading edge of another outbreak of cool air coming into the Dakotas. Get out to 120 hours and we almost lose definition on Matthew. And now we're just back to the usual progression of storms moving east-west or west to east through the central U.S. Here comes another front. And it should stay kind of mild. And as we get further out towards October 20th, it kicks a pretty strong cold outbreak through the eastern U.S. See that? Brings the 540 decameter thickness line into the northeast, and that's an air mass that is going to be in the 20s and 30s. However, we do know that the GFS tends to have a cold bias, so we're going to look for the possibility of the GFS backing off on that. I would certainly expect to see that. And we'll just take a quick look at the upper air patterns. We haven't done that in a while. But just to go through this very quickly, you can see a subtropical jet here across northwest Mexico. Very meridional flow with the jet through the North American continent. And then we shift things forward. The Pacific is very active. Got a 140, 150 knot jet coming into the U.S. coast. Some ridging out in western Canada. That's going to help kick some cool air southward into the Great Lakes area. And then as we get to 240 hours, things become more zonal, kind of a very fast zonal flow. So it should be pretty quiet around mid-month. And that's about it. I keep forgetting to point this out, but if you want to check out the new book that I put out, the Forecaster's Reference Workbook, that's at weathergraphics.com. Certainly check that out. I will tell you this is not going to teach you how to forecast. This is more of a collection of very useful charts that are going to help you during the forecast process. So there's going to be some blank color skew-tees and photographs and stuff like that. And there is some instructional stuff in there, but definitely take a look at that if you like. And let's see, I think I'm done. See what's going on in chat. Not a whole lot. There's a comment about where did this graphic come from. I missed that, so I'm not sure what that refers to. But you can leave a comment on the video and I'll respond to that later. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow night, Friday at 8 p.m.